I'm Nick Meredith. In case you didn't know, I'm Nick Meredith. And I'm going to say Psalm 127. Unless the Lord builds a house, its builder labors over it in vain. Unless the Lord watches over a city, the watchman stays alert in vain. In vain you rise up early and stay up late, eating food earned by hard work. Certainly he gives sleep to the one he loves. Sons are a heritage from the Lord, children a reward. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are the sons born in one's youth. Happy is the man who has filled his quiver with them. Such men will never be put to shame when they speak with their enemies at the city gate. Now I get to tell you a speech excerpt from one of Patrick Henry's speeches. It's a very interesting speech. They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be strong enough? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and a British guard is stationed in every house? Shall we gain strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope? Sir, we are not weak if we make proper use of the means which the God of nature hath given to us. 3 millions of people, armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country that we possess, can defeat any foe that our enemy sends against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God, who presides over the destinies of nations, and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Even if we were base enough to consider retreating, there is no retreat. But in submission and slavery, our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. And let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain to extenuate this matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually here. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our cities ruin and destruction. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Now I will be talking about salt bowl. And I have a little sample of salt that I got at the museum up there that you can just look at and pass around. It's just salt. Not very interesting. But I decided I'd hand it out. Okay, so salt bowl produces salt, hence the name, salt bowl. And it did not start producing salt till about close to the Revolutionary War, just after though. So every year, about back then, every year the Americans would eat a 50-pound bushel of salt. It's pretty heavy to carry a 50-pound bushel of salt from Podunk, Virginia to Massachusetts or New York City. So they had to transport it. And I'm going to talk about the different ways that transportation of the salt evolved. So the first way they would do it is by horse and wagon. And that was not very efficient because horses are slow, they can't carry as much, and it was just really hard. So one of the investors in the salt mines had a brilliant idea. The North Fork of the Holston flows near Salt Bowl, but not on Salt Bowl. And it floods every once in a while. So this guy, William King, he built some boats, not very big boats, small boats, and put salt in them, and then set them out on the floodplains. And when the North Fork flooded, it shipped all the boats down to Tennessee. And when they got to Tennessee, William King had built a port down there, and they called it Kingsport. And that is the modern city of Kingsport today. That's why it's called Kingsport. Alright, so that's how they used boats. Now, I have zip line up here because that was a efficient means of getting the salt from the mines to the city, where they could package it and clean it and fix the water up and all things like that. So that's why it's up here. Alright, around the time of the Civil War, Salt Bowl, yes, here?
How do they transport it with zip lines?
Oh, that's a very good question. What they would do is they would put it in these big boxes, and then they would stick the box on the zip line, and it would go up the mountain, and then they would take the salt out, and then send it back down. So, during the Civil War, Salt Bowl was part of the South, and it produced almost all of the salt for the Confederacy, because there were two other salt-producing areas. Both of them were destroyed by the Union. Saltville was eventually destroyed, but for the majority of the war, it stayed active and produced salt. But after the Civil War, a railroad was built through Saltville, and that made everything so much easier, and they can now ship efficiently. Nowadays, they use trucks, and it works well too. All right, so these are some things that Saltville has done over the years. They mine salt, gypsum, which produces plaster, and they produce chemicals from salt, and now there's natural gas stored in the chasms that are created when salt is mined. All right, so that's all I have about Saltville. Yes, Sam?
You said that Saltville was destroyed. Was it rebuilt?
Yes.
Do they still make salt there?
Yes, they produce about 5 million 50-pound bushels of salt every year.
Where did the salt come from?
The ground.
Where did it originally come from?
The ground.
It just existed in the ground.
Yes.
Okay.
Why isn't there more deposits of salt? I didn't realize there were so few.
It's not that there are so few, it's that salt is a very, I don't know the right word, but it dissolves very easily. And so if it's in an area that has water flow to the ocean, it's going to all dissolve and go to the ocean. And so in Saltville there was a lake, and that was totally secluded, still waters, and the salt dissolved, some of the salt dissolved into it. And that was why it did not. Thank you, T-Rex. Go everywhere.
Do they take any salt from the ocean for commercial use?
I don't, well, sometimes they do. You can see like sea salt stuff.
Yes.
Why was salt so important?
Salt was used for preserving meat and seasoning everything. Alright, so now I'm just going to quickly do some stuff that I learned in biology about leaves. I had to do a lab, and I had some samples from my lab. You can take one and pass it down.
Keep one.
Keep one, yes.
Alright,
I don't need them anymore. Alright, so you have 4 things that you had to identify about the leaf. You have the margin, the shape, and the venation and the mosaic. So the mosaic is how the leaf is positioned on the branch. You have alternate, it alternates on either side of the branch. Opposite, they oppose each other. Or whorled, and that's where it all comes out of one part of the branch. You can have 5 or 7 coming out of the same part. Shape, you have multiple different shapes. Oak trees have lobed shapes. You'll probably see those in around here. Maple trees have a cleft shape. You have elliptical over here. That's for like cat reeds and stuff. Margin, this is how the leaf is, the sides of the leaf, how they feel. Poison ivy, for instance, is going to have a number 2 margin, and it's a little rougher. And so the margin goes entire and very smooth to undulate, which is wavy. So those are some of the margins. And then the venation is how the leaf sends chloroplasts to all the parts of its body. And you can have you have 3 types of venations. All of the stems point up, or you have one pointing up and multiple pointing out from it, or you have the last one pointing up and some pointing out to different parts. That's what you're going to see in oak leaves and maple leaves. Alright, that's all I have about leaves. Any questions?
Wow.
Yes. Why is the hemlock called the hemlock?
Why is it called the hemlock? I don't know. I didn't name it.
William King, going back to Saltville, William King is the guy that did the same person as William King used to be a school in Abingdon, Virginia. It's the same guy, right?
Correct.
Same
I
guy?
went to William King.
That's really cool.
Wow.
Small world.
That's, I think that's why the name King is so
Yes.
so prominent around here too.
Yes, because
What's one of the benefits of leaves
one of the benefits of leaves,
to the ecosystem?
well, first of all, they help keep the tree alive. That's how it can perform photosynthesis. And then second of all, once the tree is done with them and drops them off, they decompose and they produce very good minerals that go into the soil and help other things to grow.
So what exactly is photosynthesis?
Photosynthesis is the process where a tree will convert energy from the sun into chloroplasts and send those inside of itself and create xylem and phloem, in which it uses to survive.
Also oxygen, right?
Yes. Well, it doesn't create oxygen. It transforms. It's not quite creation, but
Okay.
essentially, yeah, okay, sort of.
carbon dioxide, didn't it?
Yeah. It takes in carbon dioxide
Takes
and
out the carbon
Yeah.
from carbon dioxide and
Yeah.
releases oxygen.
Hey Nick,
yes.
for this leaf, it is the last one on the bottom.
It is.
Yes.
How do you know? Did you read it?
No, I looked at the leaf.
You looked at the leaf? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question here.
Yes.
In your studies, did you find out why they are filling the salt caverns with natural gas?
Yes. It's more of a convenience purpose. The holes are there, and the companies like Atmos need a place to store their gas efficiently.
So
They don't want to just have
using it.
huge tanks. Yeah, that's how it is.
They-
Sticking containers down in there and closing it off.
That's, Eastman does the same thing in Texas, and they have a plant in Longview, Texas, which is East Texas, and they actually go into the salt caverns or and they flood it out to wash out the salt and create these huge caverns, and they store their ethylene, which is a part of the natural gas in there.
That's really
So they created it as part of their fields of where they store their raw material. So when like ethylene gets cheap, which is part, they'll buy ethylene and put it in those caverns, then use it later.
smart company. All right. Thank you very much.